Welcome back, guys. So last week we made an episode about what's better, to be nice or get shit done. And in the end of the episode, I promised you that the next week we're going to talk about a topic that's very dear to my heart. It's the topic of consequences. Now, it's a really broad topic, but I really want to touch on just a couple of things which I think are the most important. So the first thing about consequences does sound cliche. When you make a decision, you need to think of the consequences of not just immediate, tomorrow, the day after tomorrow, but really long-term consequences. You see, let me give you a personal story that happened to us. I had a business running a hotel, some restaurants and so on. We were doing really well. In fact, we were doing so well that some companies approached us and said, you know what? How about you're gonna sell some of our products exclusively? We're gonna make you an exclusive deal. We're gonna throw a bunch of money at you, but you will not be able to, sell products on the competition. And all we want in exchange is that you display our products and that you buy products from us over the next 5 years in X amount of money. You know, we were doing well, but I thought, hey, why not? Sounds like a good deal. All we have to do is continue selling the kind of brands that we've been selling anyways, plus they're gonna throw some money at us. And what's the worst that can happen? Sounded like a good deal at the time. So after, talking to my team, we said, you know what, let's do it. Let's take it. What happened next was a year into the deal, 2 years into the deal, things are going great. We're selling at a really good speed. We can see that within the next 4 years, we'll be able to finish the deal. We'll be able to buy alcohol and drinks from this brand for the amount that we agreed. But about 2.5, 3 years into the deal, the owner of the real estate where we are working decided to sell the property. And the only way to sell the property is, of course, terminate the contract with us and sell the property to someone else for them to use. The owner of the real estate obviously doesn't care about any contracts that I, as an operator, had with any of my suppliers, right? He has the right to terminate the contract, which he did. It was a situation where we were getting along great with the person that owned the house. We didn't want to have a conflict, so since he decided to sell the property, we agreed, went our separate ways. But we definitely forgot about the deal that we had with these guys. We thought we sold pretty well. We handled all of our contracts when we finished our main operating contract and should have left it there and forgot it. About 5 years later, I get an email saying, listen, you signed this contract 5 years ago. You only purchased to 50 or 60% of the amount that you were supposed to purchase. We want all this money that we gave you. We want more than half of it back. By that time, the company already doesn't have any business. We finished, we ended all of our agreements. So I'm like, what's gonna happen with this? I met with the people that sent us the email, explained to them that, listen, this is what happened. We were selling everything as we should have, but as the owner sold the property, we simply didn't have the opportunity to sell your products forward. Let's find a decent way out. The decent way out ended up us going to court, half a year court battle, the court later deciding that we should still find a way to pay this party the amount that they gave us. We should return it to them, even though we didn't really do anything wrong. Our business was terminated, but still that was the court's decision. And so I tell you this story just to bring out a point that sometimes when you're signing something at the moment and you're thinking, how does this affect me today? How does this affect me tomorrow? What is it going to do to my budget this year, next year? And you're probably not thinking what's going to happen to me when I sign this deal 5, 10 years down the line. Trust me, you should. This case that I just told you about, it's a real case. I had to go to court. I had to pay this party the sum that the court said. Now, whether I did or how I managed to get out of it with my lawyers is a different case. But the point is, think of consequences many years down the line. When you make those decisions today, they could affect you when you're not even thinking about it. You might have forgotten about this deal already, but every time you sign a piece of paper, there's consequences to it. But I want to get to my second point. Just because there are consequences, which may be negative, may be positive, it doesn't mean you shouldn't do something, right? Like in my case, if I'm able to afford a good lawyer, if I'm able to get out of this deal, maybe the right thing was to sign this contract, was to take this money and deal with it 5 years later on, one way or another. And this is really the second point that I want to get to. There are often negative consequences, but there are reasons to still accept these negative circumstances and do something anyways. See, the second story that I have for you is a lot more personal. I was in business with one of my family members for a very, very long time, over 10 years. We had contracts between ourselves, even though we were family members. But at one point came a time where the person said, listen, I want to get rid of all of these assets. And I know you worked for 10 years, but I'm sure you're going to be fine and find yourself another job and so on. And it just pretty much told me that I want to sell the properties off and terminate the agreement with you. Now, according to our agreement, he didn't have the right to do that. And the only reason he could terminate an agreement with us is if there was any debt. And we were delayed behind some payments at that moment. So he pretty much let me know that because you have this delay in payments, I could just finish the agreement with you from one day, and that's that. Now, I had a real choice to make. Either I'm going to accept what he says, keep those family relations, friendly relationship with this person, you know, fold, deal with all the trouble that I have because he terminated the contracts, you know, loan contracts that I had, suppliers and so on, or I could fight back. I could fight back by paying back this money that I owed him and tell him that you can't terminate the contract with me from one day. We still have, 12 years to go in the contract. My estimated profit for this period is this, and we should be compensated for something. Now, it's a very, very tough decision to make. And today, if I just asked you what you would do, you would probably have a quick answer. But if you were really in this situation, it's a very, very difficult answer. Whether you want to keep a family relationship or you want to go the business route. I knew that going the keep the family relationship together would cause irreparable damage to my reputation, to the contracts I signed, to my financial situation. And so I understood that the only real thing for me to do was to go the business route. And just that you understand, we're on two very, very different levels. So the person that I'm against in this situation is significantly wealthier, and for him this whole deal doesn't even matter. It's a matter of principle. So what I did is that I managed to find the money really quick. I paid back all of the loans and I said, you know what, if you want to terminate the agreement really fast, fine, let's do it, but this is the compensation that I want. I ended up getting it, and of course everything that happened next was exactly as I understood would happen. So choosing the business approach, I understood that I would be sacrificing the family relationship that we had. That's exactly what happened. It was a hard thing to do, but it was a really, really necessary decision. Everything that followed, though, I had about 1 or 2 very, very tough years after that, starting everything from scratch without, the support of a person that was a mentor to me for 10 years. But eventually I got out of it. I found something more to do. I started another business. Things started to really look up and went up from there. But it's a relationship that's kind of ruined to this day. But why I told you this story as well is that sometimes the consequences are harsh, they're hard, they're not pleasant, but they're the right thing to do. So today's lesson is about consequences and is really about 2 things. Beware of consequences long term, and if you can deal with them, if you can afford them, if you will be better even though it might be hard at first, then still do it. Just always think of the consequences, and if you can pay the price, do it. That's the lesson. Thank you for watching. Subscribe and hit the bell so you can always get new updates as soon as we upload these videos. Remember, only winners last.